Hello everyone, welcome to a Vital Plan live stream here. My name's Tim. I'm going to be your host for this hour-long Q&A session with Dr. Bill Rawls. The topic today is brain health as we age. And this is something that's been top of mind for a lot of people lately with the holidays, with different lingering symptoms of folks that have had the unfortunate experience of getting COVID with brain fog and forgetfulness and different cognitive issues there. And then also just maybe things that run your family with cognitive decline or Alzheimer's, those kinds of things, just aging and getting more forgetful in general. So keeping your brain sharp is obviously a really important thing to aging well. And so Dr. Rawls is going to be joining today to answer questions about how to keep your brain healthy naturally, how to improve memory and mental acuity and all those sorts of things. So no questions are off the table. Feel free to type questions into the chat throughout this next hour. We're on both Facebook and YouTube, so send us your questions and let us know what you want Dr. Rawls to answer. Also, for all of you that are attending live today, I want to let you know that we are giving away 3 Brain Love bundles, and you can sign up for that drawing in the chat. Sending that out right now. There's a little link. It's really easy. Just enter your name and email and we'll do a drawing. And by the end of the week, we'll let you know if you are one of the 3 lucky winners for this bundle of 3 products here, or really more than that. We've got a CBD bundle of full spectrum hemp oil, a joint and muscle rub, and a lip balm. Also, we've got a krill oil plus and some brain boost. And all of those products are helpful for brain health. So it's the Brain Love Bundle. And I bet Dr. Rawls will talk a little bit about some of the herbs in these products as they come up throughout the Q&A. So if you're interested in entering that drawing, you can click on the link in the chat you see. And I'll put this up a few times throughout the live stream. But without further ado, why don't we go ahead and ask Dr. Rawls to join us, and we'll get into the questions. Dr. Rawls?
Hey, Tim. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. For those who don't know me, I'm Dr. Bill Rawls, and I have been a physician for 30 years, but have been in the wellness space of using natural therapies to enhance health, enhance well-being for a good 15 years of my life now. And so this is a new event for focusing on more of prevention, healthy aging, aging topics like brain health. So if you have questions, throw them at me, and I'll do my best to answer. So we'll see. So I feel like my memory is getting worse lately. It wasn't a problem before. Can I get it back? And the answer is probably, yeah. It's you know, the brain issues are a function of what's going on inside the brain, of course. And if your brain cells are healthy and your brain functions are healthy, then you're going to remember things, and everything is going to do well. Our brain, like all the rest of us, is made of cells, and there are a lot of different kinds of cells inside our head, of course. So you have nerve cells of various kinds that are basically relay stations to make all those cognitive functions work. And then you have glial cells that are part of the immune system that protect the cells from microbes and that sort of thing. So a lot going on in the brain, and brain cells work pretty hard. So all cells in the body, to be healthy, must get a steady flow of water containing nutrients, oxygen, and they have to be bathed in that. And they also have to have all the metabolic waste carried away from the cell. So that requires good flow. So you got to have good flow. You've got to have a good vascular system in the brain with good flow to flush those cells. And the brain has basically a sewer system called the lymphatic system. All that has to drain. So there are a lot of things that are affecting it. What you eat is affecting it. If you're eating a high carb processed food diet, You're going to pick up a lot of toxins, and you're going to pollute your cells with carbohydrates and bad fats that you don't need, and fats that promote inflammation. A lot of toxins in the world, all the petrochemicals out there, plus mold and mildew inside of our houses, that affects brain health. How stressed you are. If you're stressed, then you're overtaxing your brain. You're exceeding its capacity, so all the files get disrupted, and you prevent sleep if you push that alert button too much. And your brain, it's like your computer. When you restart it, you have to reshuffle all those files and start back from ground zero. And if you're not getting sleep, that doesn't happen. So all of those things enter into the equation. So lots of good questions coming in here, and it's so brain health is a function of all of those things happening all at one time. So you have to have good flushing of fluid. So what we're finding, though, is the other thing in the equation is microbes, and that's where my study has been really interesting, is all the microbes we have in our brain. So there have been studies, 2016, 2017, looking at Alzheimer's and multiple sclerosis, found microbes in the brain, not one or two, but scores of them, hundreds of species. But the interesting thing was all the control specimens had microbes. And so it basically looks like we do have our brain tissues are peppered with microbes that live inside the cells, and that's a normal state. We have a microbiome of the brain, and we have microbes that are trying to get in the brain because there are all kinds of wonderful nutrients there. So all of these things enter into the equation of brain health. Your microbes become overactive from a dysfunctional immune system, from eating bad foods and being stressed and not getting sleep. Then the microbes start invading more tissue and causing more problems and generating more inflammation. So that has been a current topic with Lyme disease, with COVID. We're finding that the COVID virus actually crosses, it goes down the olfactory nerve. That's why people lose their sense of smell, but it also can travel through the bloodstream, get in brain tissue, and disrupt that lymphatic system, allow microbes to flourish, and also allow other microbes besides the invading microbe to flourish. So this tug of war that we have between our microbes and our environment affect our brain. And if you have enough of that going on, then brain cells start skipping a beat, and you start skipping a beat because you are not you're not getting that same function like you should. So racetams, a drug class that it's a newer drug class for Alzheimer's and memory, and basically it's been a while since I've studied them, so I've forgotten exactly what they're doing, but I think they're inhibiting build-up of some of our amyloid proteins, which are a reaction basically to the microbe. So if you're artificially blocking processes with drugs and that sort of thing, then that isn't going to actually clear the problem. It's not going to help brain function directly. So all the drugs that have been used in various kinds of brain problems are pretty limited in value. I think the natural therapies have a lot more potential for really helping people out. So let's see here. Got a Bartonella question, which invades blood vessels and in the brain, seeing white patches on an MRI. And they're seeing it in COVID, and we're seeing it in Lyme disease, and we're seeing it in a lot of different things. And is it aging? Well, if you considered the microbes flourishing in the brain and increasing invading and causing inflammation, yeah, I guess you could call it aging. But I think a lot of what we're calling aging symptoms, like loss of mental function, are not actually just from loss of cells and loss of normal function in cells. it's microbes and toxins and these other kinds of things. So not just one microbe, but a variety of microbes. Yeah, I think that is an issue that can be part of the whole thing. Yeah, it's caffeine. Caffeine, it's probably not contributing to memory loss, and there are some suggestions that short-term caffeine can actually help with memory. But caffeine tends to drive your cells harder. It's kind of like adrenaline. So if you're already driving your cells and you're taking caffeine to stay awake and drive your cells harder, you're just burning both ends of the candle. And that's the problem with caffeine. Other than like a cup of coffee in the morning or just a short lift during the day, if people are relying on that to keep their energy up, they're burning both ends of the candle and it's going to catch up with you. So let's see how to promote lymph drainage in neck and ears. Well, there are different ways. There are things that you can do for lymph drainage, and certainly just keeping a healthy vascular system and keeping that clear. Good food, low toxins, all of those things that I've already talked about are important. Something that out there has been shown to really help with lymphatic drainage is a rebounder. A rebounder is a small trampoline that you basically just bounce on it, and it really has a wonderful effect of enhancing lymph flow throughout the body, including the brain and the neck areas. Massage can be helpful, so there are a lot of things that you can do beyond just enhancing blood flow. I would expect that infrared sauna and those kinds of things can really be beneficial for helping that lymph flow, which helps drainage, that lymphatic drainage of the brain. And all of the herbs help the lymphatic system work better because they're protecting cells and decreasing cellular turnover, which decreases debris, which clogs everything up, basically. So, yeah, the immune system, one of its big jobs is taking out the garbage, flushing the sewer. So that's what we're talking about here. And so all of the herbs that we talk about can really be beneficial in suppressing microbes, protecting cells. Certain herbs really better than have been looked at specifically for brain functions. Ashwagandha, which can balance hormone functions, also has some really brain protective qualities. Bacopa is very good. Turmeric. India has some of the lower incidence of Alzheimer's in the world, and they eat a lot of turmeric every day in their food. So there has been a connection to turmeric as an anti-inflammatory. It reduces inflammation in the brain and prevents cognitive dysfunction. Lion's mane mushroom is exceptionally good. Gotu kola is well known. Bacopa, I mentioned, is an excellent herb that has a calming property that is really nice for brain function, that has had studies that have shown increased cognitive function in the elderly, but also in college students, just performing better on exams, and kids with ADD. So lots of great things there. When are we bringing back Pure Calm? Yeah, it's coming back. We're reformulating it. It was the motherwort. It's just really hard to get good quality motherwort extracts. So we're reformulating a little bit, trying to make it better. And we've been testing different formulas to figure out just the right combination. So Pure Calm is coming back, no doubt about it. And it will be even better than it was. So Mom is 87. What would be some supplements to help her as she ages? Well, just good diet. All of those things are really important. But the herbs that I mentioned are really, really exceptionally good. And they're good in the elderly too. I like the preventative supplements, turmeric, a good dose of turmeric, bacopa, lion's mane, but something to cover for the microbes, a little bit of an antimicrobial. So cat's claw is exceptional for that. Another thing that we can do for the brain is the omega-3s. And you probably heard us talking a lot about krill oil. Krill or fish. I like krill because it has the phospholipid form, which is the form that's in our cell membranes. So, so krill oil and omega-3s help protect cell membranes of cells. And when cell membranes are working well, then cells work well. So it's especially important in the brain to have good levels of omega-3s. And krill is good because it already is in that phospholipid form, which is what's incorporated directly into the cell membranes of the cell. So that's really good. Arginine, let's see, do you know if it's okay to take arginine without causing a herpes flare? Yeah, I don't know that arginine is associated with herpes flares. That's a newer one on me. Arginine is an amino acid that promotes formation of nitric oxide, and it's another one called citrulline is good for that. You have to take a lot of it, like several grams a day. So that's something you'd put in scoops in a smoothie, usually a combination of arginine and citrulline to promote good blood flow. Nitric oxide is a vasodilator. So it can help with that. That's something that you can do. So, and thanks for adding in the link for the lymphatic congestion. So, certain supplements make my eustachian tubes clog. Not sure about that one. I would suspect that you're just having a mild and allergic reaction to them, and it probably possibly is increasing fluid. So that one would be harder to answer. You know, we might have to work on that one at another time to get all the way through to figure that one out. Another option for krill for vegans. If the krill is the omega-3s all come from vegetable sources, from plant sources. So krill are eating algae, and that is concentrating it. And then fish eat the krill, and it moves right on up the food chain. So a lot of marine organisms are high in omega-3s, but it comes from algae. And you can get algae supplements of omega-3s. They're a little bit more expensive because the nice thing about the krill is it concentrates it. So you got it all in one place, and it makes it one thing pretty easily. But so you can get various kinds of algae supplements with concentrations of omega-3s. You can also find it in flaxseed. I found that you have to eat a lot of flaxseed to actually get benefit from the omega-3s in flaxseed. Chia seeds are high in omega-3s, so there are various kinds of sources. But I have seen some good, probably the easiest sources are the algae. And they basically concentrate the omega-3 in the algae. So yeah, common question. I keep reading about COVID brain fog, and it scares me. Is there anything I can do to protect myself if I do get the virus? Everybody stay tuned. I'm getting ready to put out a blog about COVID and chronic COVID and how it affects the brain. And so this virus, like other viruses we found, travels in both the bloodstream, but the coronavirus causing COVID travels down the olfactory nerve, and that's why we lose our sense of smell. And it does get into brain tissue where it does a variety of things. It infects brain cells, nerve cells in the brain, but it also infects the vascular system, so it inhibits blood flow. And it does a variety of things, and generally just causes a lot of inflammation. Doesn't happen in everyone, but we are seeing that about 1 in 5 people that have had COVID actually do develop chronic symptoms that often includes brain fog. So that's a big one. That's a big one. And so the good thing is there's a lot of research out there, And I'm going through all the studies right now, looking at various different herbs in Chinese medicine, showing that it has a very good inhibitory effect in the virus. So you have to think about it this way. Viruses are ubiquitous in nature. Viruses are absolutely everywhere, and every virus has a cell that it can infect. Every single cell has some virus out there that is just waiting to attach to it. So all living organisms are confronted with viruses. We are every day, but so are plants and mushrooms and bacteria and everything else. So every cell out there has a virus that can connect to it and infect it. So all plants are having to protect their cells from viruses. So in that respect, all plants are making antiviral substances. But it's not just one substance, it's a spectrum of many, many things that are hitting viruses from very many directions. So it's not affecting just one type of virus, it's affecting many, many types of virus. So we have that on our side right from the beginning. And I found over the years, just colds and flus and that sort of thing, they just don't knock me down anymore. Taking herbs regularly, but increasing the dose of herbs. And so we are finding that there are many kinds of herbs, many of them which are in our products, that actually have inhibitory effect on the coronavirus, which is pretty darn cool. So herbs, omega-3 supplements, it appears that for COVID itself, glutathione and N-acetylcysteine are very, very important for inhibiting the virus and protecting cells, especially in the lungs. So when you think about COVID, we think about it as a respiratory virus. It's like when you think about COVID or influenza, those are respiratory viruses. And then Borrelia and Bartonella, Borrelia is a tick-borne virus or a tick-borne bacteria. So, but those are just the entry points. So another way to think about it is your cells, the reason that viruses and bacteria want to get inside your body is because your cells are the ultimate resource. It already has all the nutrients, the carbohydrates, fats, proteins, and vitamins, everything that they need to survive is in our cells. So viruses, bacteria, viruses, protozoa want to get inside our body to get at those resources. So they have to get through the barriers of the exterior of the body and through the first defenses of the immune system to do that, though. So the entry point is where the war starts. But different microbes specialize in different entry points. So coronavirus specializes in the lungs. And that's the entry point. Because of all the barriers in the body, the lungs are a pretty weak entry point. Our skin is pretty thick, our intestinal tract is pretty well defined, but our lungs is a very thin layer because we have to pass oxygen and carbon dioxide between the air and our bloodstream. So that's a really thin barrier. And it's very, very vulnerable. So a lot of microbes do try to enter there. But that's the entry point. What they want to do is get inside the body. So immediately, if they can get past those first defenses, they are in the bloodstream or traveling down nerves or doing anything they can to get at the gold mine, which is all of the cells inside our body. And that's what they really want. So even though we get a lot of of symptoms in the lungs, yeah, it's pretty quick. And so far there in COVID, they found the virus in heart and liver and kidneys and certainly the brain. So it's so those are big issues. But again, our botanicals, our plant substances, the phytochemicals produced by plants just do wonderful things for giving us that added protection beyond our immune system to help our immune system out. So certainly the vaccine is coming, and I think that's going to be very important. But for COVID or any viral infection or really anything, we're constantly confronted with microbes. So herbs really gives us a huge advantage of boosting our immune system continually to give us constant protection from these things. So really important. So let's see here. So 72-year-old husband on Plavix, and I really wanted to take krill because he doesn't eat fish, but otherwise healthy. Any drug interactions? Yeah, krill, like all the omega-3s, is a blood thinner. And that's, the highest natural intake of humans of omega-3s is the Inuit populations in the far northern hemisphere, who traditionally eat a lot of fish and seals and other things that are very, very high in omega-3s, and their risk of cardiovascular disease, as far as plaque formation and that sort of thing, is near zero, at least in traditional populations. Folks that are eating all of the processed food that everyone else is now aren't having that benefit. But eating over 9 grams or 9,000 milligrams of fish oil a day, their diets can get pretty high, is associated with hemorrhagic stroke, or thinning blood vessels so much and thinning the blood so much that blood vessels leak. So you have to keep careful of that. It takes a pretty significant dose. And I think just working with a healthcare provider, let them know that you want to take the krill. And sometimes what they can do is lower the dose of the medication, or just check all of the blood coagulation factors to make sure that things aren't getting too thin. Mycoplasma, that's another one out there that can affect brain. Chlamydia can affect brain. We see these things in various kinds of things like multiple sclerosis. But how do you treat it even without symptoms? Yeah, Mycoplasma, there are many, dozens of species of Mycoplasma, and we're finding that more of them have interaction in our human systems than we thought. But one, or actually a couple, Mycoplasma pneumoniae, Mycoplasma fermentans, pretty much everybody picks these things up as children. If you get it as an adult, it ends up as walking pneumonia. But Mycoplasma doesn't have a cell wall, so most antibiotics don't work on it. And if we get it in our bodies, it can stay dormant for a long time, for our whole lifetime. I've read studies that upwards of somewhere between a quarter to even 3/4 of the population of any given population may harbor it. So lots of good herbs. Houtonia, Chinese skullcap. One of my favorite, Anamu from the Amazon. Anamu, A-N-A-M-U, is just a great herb for Mycoplasma. So there's some good articles on Mycoplasma on my website. Check that out. So we are just republishing the new a new version of the Mycoplasma, just an update. So there's a lot of good information on there. Primary microbes that gravitate toward the brain. Well, there are a lot of them. I mean, all of them. I mean, the brain is just great resources. It's good microbe food, just really rich, so a lot of microbes are. So what I'm finding is, when I'm looking at the studies of looking at things that can get in the brain, but not cause debilitating illness and can just be there. Again, the brain studies that I mentioned, there were hundreds of microbes that were present in normal brain tissue, people that didn't have neurodegenerative disease. So interestingly, the Alzheimer's study, one of the more prominent pro-inflammatory microbes that they found was P. acnes. That's a microbe that causes acne in the brain, associated with Alzheimer's, one of the more pro-inflammatory. But of course, there's been herpes simplex that 1 out of 5 people have, and Epstein-Barr virus. And so really, all of them are trying to get there. And we depend on a healthy immune system and healthy cells. If your cells are healthy, they're less vulnerable to invasion by microbes. So keeping your cells healthy with good diet, low stress, low toxin environment, all these things that you hear me talk about over and over again are so important. So let's see, primary. And so what are the top 3 herbs? Top 3 herbs for microbes in the brain. Well, I already mentioned some of the brain supplements out there. I'd say cat's claw would be on the list, used traditionally for treatment of for people that were having struggles with cognitive dysfunction. We know it has some antimicrobial properties of various levels. Reishi mushroom is a really, really nice one. I think it's a great adaptogen, good for brain health. That's another one to take. And there are just so many. And lion's mane mushroom has been very specifically related to increased cognitive function. And then probably Japanese knotweed, certainly garlic. I don't know. There's so many good herbs out there. That's the great thing. You know, we've got so many good things that can really help protect us. So next good question. Really good question. Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
Can I just jump in for 1 second? Because we've had a lot of questions about brain health and a few questions sort of related to Lyme. So wanted to let people know about the upcoming webinar we've got. And that is going to be coming up next Tuesday. If you've got more questions about NeuroLyme or that sort of topic, you can sign up for that over at Rawls MD. That'll be at 8 p.m. on Tuesday, 12/15. And we'll post a link in the chat in case that is a place that you want to learn some more about neurological issues with Lyme. And also, we're kind of at the half-hour mark, so I wanted to remind you guys one more time, if you haven't already, to sign up for the Brain Love Bundle drawing. And we're going to give away 3 of those. So you may be able to win one and get a lot of support for your brain health. Some of the herbs Dr. Rawls talked about, lion's mane, cat's claw is an brain boost, krill oil, great source of omega-3s. Haven't talked about CBD really yet, but maybe we'll get to that. So yeah, just wanted to let you know that. And we've got another half hour here, so we'll keep on answering all of your questions. Thanks for sending those in. Keep them rolling, and we'll answer as many as we can. Back to you, Dr. Rawls.
All right, thanks, Tim. So back to that question, a really good question of what about the gut and the brain? How are those two connected? Of which they are very directly. They're connected by the vagal nerve, and there is constant communication between the brain and the gut, constant interaction between the cells in the intestinal cells, but also the microbes. So microbes have a constant conversation going on between each other and our intestinal cells. And we have a unique relationship with the microbes that we define as normal flora in our gut. And it's not that they're especially friendly per se, it's just we've got a long-term working relationship that's mutual. So with the microbes with our normal flora, those microbes are producing substances that suppress potential pathogens. So that's why we allow them to hang around. And they help digest food and produce some vitamins. But so that helps protect the intestinal cells. And so the conversation that those microbes have is very favorable. So interestingly, microbes in the gut use a lot of the same neurotransmitters that we do. Serotonin, GABA, many of the same neurotransmitters that we find in the brain are actually used by microbes to converse. So you've got to remember that all these things we call neurotransmitters are messengers. So if you've got a healthy gut flora, you've got a very calming, favorable conversation going on between the microbes, your intestinal cells, and all of your brain cells are sensing in on that conversation also. But if you eat bad food and you're stressed and you grow out bad microbes in your gut, then you're going to have a very different conversation. That's going to be much more excitatory. So bad microbes in the gut produce substances that are very stimulating. They're excitatory neurotransmitters, histamine and a variety of things like histamine. Well, all those things travel through our bloodstream and end up in our brain. they agitate the brain, they enhance that fight or flight response, and driving, and often, and that affects suppressing serotonin and a lot of other things, that it sets up a neurotransmitter base that promotes anxiety and depression and a lot of other things. So your gut microbes are affecting not only your brain through communication, but also your gut microbes travel through travel across the brain barrier. And that was really interesting. That was a study in 2015 that showed that it happens a little bit in everybody, but somebody with dysbiosis, they've disrupted their gut microflora. Those microbes pretty readily cross into the bloodstream, hitch a ride in red blood cells, and end up all throughout the body, including the brain. And very interestingly, in the brain studies that were done looking at the microbiome of the brain, many of those microbes came from the gut. So things circulate around. This thing that the microbes stay in place, it's just not as accurate as we once thought. They do cross over these different barriers. The blood-brain barrier and the blood-gut barrier are not nearly as tight as once thought. And these things do readily circulate around, and that can make a huge difference in how we feel. Let's see, Jessica asked about recommendations for low iron stores. Ferritin will not move past 20, and this can contribute to brain fog and low energy and that sort of thing. Well, affecting flow out of the body is one thing, addressing heavy periods or just not making new red blood cells. So there are various kinds of medical issues that need to be investigated there. As far as taking iron, the old iron sulfate is just not well tolerated by the gut. There's some chelated and forms of iron using amino acids and various kinds of preparations that you can get at health food stores that are much more absorbed. Some people, just to get it up, do need iron injections, but haven't had to do that in a long time with patients. But it is sometimes that the injections are necessary just to get people up to a level, especially if you've had like heavy periods for a long time or just aren't processing the iron and making new red blood cells. So question about Bartonella. Yeah, we're not going to do as many Lyme questions, but if you'll hit me in one of our restore sessions, we'll talk more and more about Bartonella. It is a big microbe out there for sure. L-arginine, I talked about a little bit before. You have to take a lot of it. You can combine it with citrulline. I've taken it at various points in my life, added it to smoothies and that sort of thing. I didn't notice a huge difference, but there are some good published studies showing that it increases increases nitric oxide and causes blood vessels to dilate. So I don't have any problem with using it. I think it's a good one. Supplements against coronavirus. There are many of them, and many of them are in the herbs that we talk about. I'm going to hold on that one because I'm going to have a whole list of them. I'm still researching it. Fortunately, a lot of them are already in the things that we're using every day. But look for that article, a blog coming out in the next week or two on long COVID. And it's going to have a nice list of herbs that are researched. There's a lot of good research. A lot of people have been looking at herbal therapies for use in these things, not only for this virus, but also the previous SARS and MERS viruses. So we have a lot more information than you might expect on herbs. And I think the sad thing is all we're hearing about is the drugs. We've got all these wonderful herbs that have documented benefit, and people have responded to them. And when have you heard about that on any news source? Any news source, which I think is sad. You know, it's we're not using the things that are already there. We try to reinvent the wheel instead of looking toward Mother Nature that's been supplying things from the very beginning. So I think it's just yeah, it's we should be getting the word out about how important herbs are and how valuable they are. All right, taking a probiotic to balance that gut. Personally, I think herbs and good diet have a lot more effect. Probiotics are especially beneficial, and there are various kinds of probiotics if you've had your gut disrupted by antibiotics. But if your gut hasn't been disrupted by antibiotics, then the herb, or and even then, if it has, really good food, just a good diet that maybe includes some fermented sources of food like kimchi or sauerkraut that has live bacteria. Yogurt, pretty good. I like the vegetable sources better. Eating that regularly and just a high vegetable diet, you'll bring all those bacteria, the normal ones, back into your life. So just eating a really good diet can restore things, in my opinion, much more than a probiotic. The probiotic is we're just getting one strain, and we've got thousands of strains of bacteria in our gut that are important. So achieving that balance, the only thing that I've seen that truly therapeutic in someone with really badly gut dysfunction, badly disrupted gut dysfunction, is a fecal implant. Or a fecal transplant, because basically you're getting a huge volume of a blend of bacteria. And there are companies around the world that are working on trying to create a supplement that would be the same as a fecal transplant. They just haven't gotten there yet. So, but you know, probiotics are fine. I think the potential for harm is low, but I haven't had seen that many indications that it worked extraordinarily well. It's mainly in people that have been severely disrupted by antibiotics. So, can you take too many herbs? I don't think so. I mean, maybe I've been trying all these years. I'm taking a lot of stuff. I was really bashful in the beginning, but then I got really, really aggressive about it and took a lot of stuff at once. The biggest limitation is just processing. Processing all the stuff that's coming through your GI tract and all of those chemicals at one time could just cause a bit of an overload on your system. But I think it would be really, really hard as far as having a toxic overdose. Most of your herbs, the toxicity level is really high. I remember it was really interesting. I saw a study that it was an animal study done with mice, but they were looking at a garlic extract that we were using, a stabilized garlic extract. And so they defined the toxic dose in mice, and the equivalent of that toxic dose in humans would be taking 3,000 capsules of this supplement a day. 3,000. That's how much you'd have to get to be toxic. So you have to eat a lot of this stuff. So you have to remember that a lot of these things, our body is designed to process because we were getting all these things in our ancient forage food diet. We were getting, when the forage food diet was about 2/3 plant matter in most locations on Earth, and it was stems and leaves and roots and bark and wild berries and mushrooms, and just a variety of different kinds of plant substances. What it wasn't was high in carbohydrates and fat, but it had lots of phytochemicals packed with them. And so humans were getting loads of this stuff, much more than somebody taking average herbal therapy today. So our bodies are really designed to process that. So, all right. So we're gonna skip the Lyme questions, and it's and we'll catch those at another time. Don't forget, we've got a big webinar coming up in about a week. So please do that. There will be a question and answer session there, no doubt about it. So very good. How about CBD for brain health? Yeah, that's a good one. It's another herb. We're hearing a lot about CBD. It comes from a form of cannabis called hemp. And that particular form is extremely low in THC, the thing that is in marijuana. So CBD and THC are two opposite ends of the spectrum, truly, as far as what effect they have in the body. So what we're doing is affecting a system in the body called the endocannabinoid system. And the endocannabinoid system is a fine-tuning system. So it fine-tunes endorphins, mood hormones, immune system functions, especially everything in the brain is affected by the endocannabinoid system. So with CBD, what we're doing is up-regulating the endocannabinoid system. So it binds very weakly to the receptors in the endocannabinoid system and has the effect of, so the body responds by making more receptors and making more of the natural chemicals. So you basically enhance all the functions of the endocannabinoid systems. So what that means is more endorphins, more positive mood hormones. It directly affects serotonin. So it's doing all these wonderful things, but because it doesn't bind tightly to the receptor, there's no chance of habituation or euphoria. THC binds very tightly to the receptor, so it has the effect of downregulating the system. So you become habituated, need to have the THC, and all of those effects are exaggerated, which, for if you want to use it that way, can be desirable, but most of us don't want that. So the CBD provides what we're looking for, which is enhancing our total system and therefore enhancing brain functions without that risk of euphoria, without risk of habituation. So it's a very, very, very safe thing to do. So, all right. So what have we got here? How about helping sleep? Yeah. Sleep is essential for brain function. You can think of your brain as your computer that runs all the rest of your body. And if you're using it all day long, you've got a lot of files pulled up on your desktop. And it starts getting cluttered. I know by 9 o'clock at night, no matter how much I try to work, I'm not going to get the same push out of my brain that I get at 9 o'clock in the morning. And the later I stay up, it's just not going to work as well. You really have to be very careful, especially as I age. I could get away with things in my 30s. I remember there were plenty of times that I was doing surgeries after being awake for 24, 36 hours, and I could get away with it. But I would not even think about doing that at this point in life because because all those things get cluttered and your brain just doesn't work as well. So sleep is when your brain resorts all the files. Sleep is when cells get downtime to rebuild themselves. So that's one of that in a nutshell is what healing is, the capacity of our cells to repair internal damage that occurs from just wear and tear all the time. Well, they do that mainly at night. So it's an opportunity for our brain cells to repair themselves. It is when that lymphatic drainage system of the brain really works optimally and flushes out. And it's basically when we put all the files, when we basically restart the computer and put down all those extra pages that we've got put up and resort things. But the brain is pretty fascinating. So in REM sleep, we're actually working out problems things that we've been exposed to during the day that we're trying to figure out, our brain sorts through them in the night, and then you come up with the answer the next morning. It's the coolest thing. So lately, I'm in the middle of writing a new book on aging, and that's when I get my best time. It's like 7 in the morning till 11 o'clock in the morning. That's when everything works. It's very, very, very best. So getting sleep, and you really do need that full 8 hours every single night, every single night. So, all right. So let's see here. Goat kefir for good bacteria. Yeah, absolutely. Again, the dairy and goat products are fine. I tried to do kimchi or sauerkraut. Those fermented vegetables are really good. We don't get enough of that. Um, let's see. We're gonna adaptogen recovery. We're gonna let you talk to customer service about that. They would be glad to help out with that. Um, let's see. Struggling with anxiety and depression. Can antidepressant help symptoms? Well, they can. I mean, they artificially block things. And what I like to look at as the problem is, all of our drugs are artificially blocking pathways that are undesirable. And I like to ask, well, why are those pathways dysfunctional? And what can we do about it? And that always takes me back to those categories of, what am I eating? What are toxins that I've been exposed to? Am I stressed and not sleeping? And do I have microbes that are affecting my functions? And generally when you do those kinds of things, these problems get better. But there are many herbs out there. The classic one for depression is St. John's wort. I don't use it that much. I think it's a pretty good herb, but it can interfere with other things in the body. My favorite herb for depression is Albizia. And Albizia is basically the mimosa tree. And it's a wonderful calming, mood elevating herb. So I really, really do like it a lot. Let's see, if you're allergic to hemp, should you avoid CBD oil? Yeah, probably so. I mean, you could try it, but you need to try it very, very carefully. So that's for everybody has allergies to something, and hemp. The CBD oil is actually extracted from the flower. Hemp oil is extracted from the seeds and doesn't have any CBD in it. But in a lot of products, they're putting the CBD oil in hemp oil, but you can also use coconut, rapeseed oil, any carrier oil. But if you're allergic to hemp or hemp oil, there's a pretty good chance that you're going to be allergic to the CBD that's coming from the flower too. Anything for ear pressure and pain, I'd probably have to go and get a good bit more history to really figure that one out. But there are things. Supplements for Alzheimer's, no doubt about it. I think there's a huge microbe connection with Alzheimer's. And I think we're going to see that more and more. I think a lot of the COVID research is going to support a lot of that. So certainly herbs can really help with that. There are some herbs that act something like drugs, and they have a lot of side effects like drugs, like vinpocetine and huperazine. I tend to stay away from those herbs. I like things like cat's claw that has some good microbe inhibiting properties, and things that protect cells like lion's mane and reishi mushroom and bacopa. And enhance some of the biochemical pathways in the brain. So there are many, some of which I mentioned, the lion's mane, the bacopa, the cat's claw, gotu kola is another really good one. Ashwagandha is exceptionally good. But all of these herbs are going to have some really, really nice properties. And again, there's some nice articles on our different websites that can really help with that too. So, all right. Sleep. Is there any remedy for middle of the night, full body throbbing pain, especially in the soles of feet? Yeah, I have had the burning feet at different times in my life. that isn't really good for you or isn't really pleasant and can wake you up. Essential oils seem to really help. Essential oil rubs, CBD oil rub can really be nice for soles of the feet and just easing some of that pain. If it's like a body pain, I would encourage use of that. But also just some of the calming herbs can be beneficial. CBD itself in the middle of the night, it gets into your system pretty rapidly. So all of these things might help just a touch. None of the natural things are going to be as potent as a drug, but they're also not going to come with the potential of habituation and other kinds of side effects that I think can be really detrimental. So it's so those are all things. And then how bad is sugar for my brain? It's terrible. It's really horrible. And all these carbohydrates we eat. So our traditional diet, our foraged food diet, had hardly any carbohydrate in it, and it was very low in fat. All of these things are high energy molecules. All right. If they're high energy, it means they're also highly reactive. So glucose, other sugars like fructose that we get from fruit, all of these molecules are very, very highly reactive. So they're packed with energy, and when you expose them to oxygen-free radicals, the molecule breaks down and releases all of the energy contained inside the molecule. But while it is intact, this high energy molecule is highly reactive with other kinds of molecules. So it has this effect called glycation that you can see with any of these sugars. Whether it comes from starch or whether it comes from table sugar, carbohydrates, simple sugars, attach to proteins. And when they do, it basically gums up the works. So think of, cells humming along and the machinery inside the cell, whatever the job the cell is, whether that's a muscle cell in the heart or a brain cell churning out messages, it has machinery inside that works. So if you flood your cells with glucose and flood your body with glucose, then those things are sticking to your proteins, and it's basically like pouring molasses into the machinery of your cell. It's going to gum it up. And so this effect called glycation is very prominent, and it definitely affects all the cells in the body, but especially brain cells. So if you've got a high carb diet and a high sugar diet, expect that brain function isn't going to be like it should. So high carbohydrate diet also affects hormones. It affects insulin, and high insulin levels just have a cascade effect that affects all of these communications in your body. So your communications break down. If that happens, your cells aren't connecting. They're not talking to one another. And if your cells don't talk to one another, they can't work together, and your body starts breaking down. And especially your brain functions start breaking down. So we all fight that battle. Trying to reduce the quantities of carbohydrates is a big deal, and it is affecting all of us, no doubt about it. So, all right, how about menopause-related memory loss? Yeah, it's we don't think about it this way, but our body is a collection of cells. We have several trillion cells, and every one of our cells has a job. And the job of every cell is taking care of all the other cells. Intestinal cells are taking care of, are pulling in nutrients. Lung cells are exchanging oxygen for carbon dioxide. Heart cells are pumping it all around. So every cell needs to get good flow and nutrients and oxygen. And so all of those functions for all of those cells in the body to work, 200 different cell types in the body, you have to have all of those functions coordinated. And that's what hormones are all about. So it's this very dynamic conversation that's going on all the time in the body of cells talking to other cells so they can continually adapt to the outside environment. So the brain is the central monitor that it's monitoring everything through our senses that's going on inside the body and directing our cells to change functions to adapt to the changing outside. So that communication that's going on in the body is so exceptionally important that it's continually going on and is moving us to a place that everything is coordinated and healthy. So in menopause, you stop one of those key messengers, or that key messenger becomes dysfunctional. So in menopause, basically what's happening is the ovaries are running out of eggs. So a female has a set supply of eggs that max out at puberty, and you're using up a collection of eggs with every cycle. So each cycle, those eggs are producing hormones in a cyclic fashion. So when that starts running out, the ovaries start sputtering, and it sends a message to the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is kind of a thermostat in our brain that monitors these functions and relays between our cognitive brain and what's going on in the body to continually adjust functions. So if you've got dysfunctional messages coming back, it throws the whole hypothalamus off. So it affects all of those thermostatically or automatically controlled functions in the body. Temperature, pain level, hunger, all of these kinds of things are affected by this dysfunction in the hypothalamus. So one of the things that I found was really nice for that is a combination of the herb ashwagandha and other herbs, L-theanine, and a couple of other calming herbs, to balance those functions, to get rid of that abnormal feedback. And that helps with hot flashes and a lot of other things. But it also, ashwagandha, again, is a great brain herb because it's balancing those functions that are also disrupting our cognitive functions. So this whole thing, all of these things work together. Every cell in the body has estrogen and progesterone receptors, men and women. And so this communication is really just remarkably important. So, all right, very good. Well, I think that might wind up our hour here. Looks like we had a good turnout and lots of good questions, y'all. It was a real pleasure. We will do this again if we can get this kind of engagement. We'd love to have you back and do more of this. So I'll let Tim take over a minute and talk about other kinds of offers we've got coming up here.
Thanks, Dr. Rawls. Well, great questions, everybody. I hope that was really helpful for you. Thanks so much for being so engaged and sending these great questions in. Don't forget to sign up for that Brain Love Bundle drawing. We're giving away 3 of those at $181 value. And a lot of the herbs Dr. Rawls talked about are in Brain Boost. That's been formulated specifically for brain health as we age. So it's a great product to check out. Also, he mentioned omega-3s. Krill Oil Plus is our favorite way to do that. And then the CBD bundle as well comes with it. So this could provide a lot of support to you or someone you love. And if you sign up to enter the drawing for the Brain Love Bundle, that'll also get you on our mailing list and let you know about the next time that we'll do another event like this. As mentioned, we do have a webinar coming up next week that we'd love to have you come to. If Neuroline is of interest to you, and some of those of you that were asking more sort of chronic illness oriented questions, that would be the place to do it over at the Rawls MD webinar. So we hope you'll sign up for that. But once again, don't forget, there's a link in the top of the chat for the live stream. We pinned the link to sign up for this Brain Love Bundle drawing. We'll pick our winners and then let you know within the next couple of days if you've won. If you would, we'd love it if you enjoyed the content today. If you like this post, that would be great. If you'd like more of this kind of stuff, just want to remind you that all of the Vital Plan customers are eligible to be a part of our rewards program. Actually, whether or not you've bought anything, you can be part of the Vital Plan rewards program. And we do live streams in the private Vital Plan Facebook group, Thrive Facebook group. Dr. Rawls does those in addition to some guided meditations and guided yoga periodically and other posts. So check that out, the rewards program. And I believe that is all. So yeah, we look forward to seeing you again, and wish you guys the best of brain health for the remainder of our week of brain health. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody. Bye.